I hereby introduce to you Mr. Michael Veazey.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Very, very happy to have on a much needed guest today. I'm always saying that, but I think different people at different stages of their business need different things. But this is an area that I think is under talked about. So I've got Aaron Sullivan from systemscultureimpact.com on the show, and he helps Amazon businesses to scale up. I can't remember the entire intro, Aaron, but you'll have to explain in a second neatly. But to basically scale up and systematize the processes in their Amazon businesses. And I'm, for one, in need of systematization. So I'm very happy to welcome you to the show. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, great to have you with us. So, Aaron, can you explain in a slightly more articulate way than I am, just trying to explain what systemscultureimpact.com actually does for Amazon business owners?
Yeah, no problem. So basically, I work with Amazon entrepreneurs to help them fully install systems into their business, because most people have either got to a point where they've got no systems in place and they've hit a ceiling for how much they can continue to launch products successfully that continue to delight their customers, right? So there's always a ceiling which you hit without systems in place, and that's the first thing I really do is help people install systems into their business. And then it's about hiring and attracting and hiring amazing talent, virtual talent from the Philippines to help build a team culture within your brand to help you then scale your business up to 7 figures and beyond. So that's in a nutshell what it entails.
Great, thank you. So it's interesting that you differentiated between the system as such and the people in it. So that's an interesting clue to start with, that they're not one and the same thing. So let's bring it right back to first of all, a tiny bit of history about you, where you started, what's brought you to this point, and your background in Amazon and your background in business.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. So I started out on Amazon in 2013. I was working in the far northwest of Australia. I was actually working in the mines in construction at the time, and it wasn't much fun, if I'm going to be completely honest. It was like one of the hottest places in the world, and I was looking for something else. So I naturally went online and started to play around with some affiliate marketing and things like that, and got an email about Amazon course, and it was the first ASM one, and I jumped on it straight away. And as soon as I went through the course, I signed up to go to the event, and I went all in pretty much. And after 5 months, I quit my job and I went full time on Amazon. But in the process of basically going to the event, I managed to connect with so many amazing people and connected with my first business partner. And then he went over to the Philippines to start building team, because he was really doing really well on Amazon. And he then invited me over to help build this team up. So that's the initial part of how I got started. And we went on to build a team of 45 staff to run multiple different brands across all different types of industries. So from that point there, it was a case of then my job to figure out all the systems and processes to run all these different SKUs at scale with across different niches on Amazon. So from that experience, I kind of had to learn what worked and what didn't work pretty quickly. So from that, I've been able to create a process and a system for removing yourself and systemizing your Amazon business, and then attracting people from the Philippines. And
Great.
It's an amazing country, the Philippines. So it's something which I love. I love to work with Filipinos.
Okay, excellent. Well, so there's lots to unpack there. So the first interesting things I like to drag out, which resonate for, I think, even people at the very beginning of the Amazon journey, even if they haven't actually sold a product yet, is a couple of things. Well, first of all, training can really help, and not everyone has structured training, but I also start off with structured training as well. Quite a few do, quite a few don't. But I think the important thing as well, the importance of an event, a live physical event where you get to meet other people. I've also met a business partner, not through one big event like, the ASM things or similar things can be, but through being a member of a mastermind, which is a more humble, but, every day. And you get to meet somebody a lot of times. So you spend a lot of time physically with them. So I think that's an important clue for everyone, really. And then, yes, of course, going through dealing with so many people and actually the nitty gritty of dealing with a lot of staff. So you've had your hands you got your hands dirty, as it were, and built this from the ground up rather than just theoretical knowledge, which is always reassuring. So thanks for, so you've actually got the perfect background to teach all Amazon sellers about this stuff. So let's start from the very beginning then, for, as they say in Mary Poppins, a very good place to start, or is it the Sound of Music? Let's talk with the person who is going to be the majority of people, which is somebody who's just got started. Maybe they've got one product, maybe a couple of products live. They're probably doing it part-time from the bedroom, in the morning before, when the kids wake up, or in the evening when everyone's got to bed. What's the first thing those people need to do to systematize things? Just in very simple terms.
Yeah, and at the highest level, when you're first starting out, there is, the overwhelm strikes pretty quickly, right? But it's always good in anything, I believe, to start with the end in mind. So it depends on, if your situation, say if you are, as a side hustle, you're just getting this up and running, then, you want to have a clear, an idea about how many products you're looking to launch, by when. And, if this is, you're going to be committed to giving this your best shot. So having an idea of the products you want to launch by when, and a rough idea of when you really want to have, your first kind of employee.
Okay. So you want to build in the first employee piece, even from the very beginning of the process, even when you just got one or two products, and you're thinking right from the beginning in a structured way, rather than just sort of suck it and see kind of thing.
Yeah, I really believe that is a much better way than, for instance, doing what everyone else does. And that's, just head down, do without really any foresight of when to get somebody in, because what happens if you don't do that is you don't build any processes. You don't have an idea of, it's never going to be exact, but you don't really have a rough idea when you want to start bringing people on, to start then moving into areas of the business which are going to be more higher value, which enables you to grow, faster. So just having a rough idea, and that's going to enable you to then go ahead and kind of structure and start thinking about your business in a way so you can bring people on when the time's right. But the point is, start with the end in mind and have an idea of, how many products you want to launch by when, and that can give you, a benchmark to work towards. And it doesn't matter if you don't hit it. It's drawing a line in the sand for you to work towards. Okay. So when you've got that, it's then all about kind of blocking into your calendar the high level. If you block into, you've been through some training. Let's just take a step back. You've been through some training on Amazon on how to source a product and launch it. So you've got an idea of what that looks like at the highest level. So really, it's just about mapping out the very high level pieces of that, and it's really straightforward. From finding an opportunity, it could just be like a Google document with product research, and the next step could be find suppliers, just a really high level. And then you've got the start to end process kind of mapped out in a way which is kind of clear. It doesn't have to be exact right now, because you're just getting going. So once you've got that, it's important then to kind of block into your calendar and have personal rhythms. So you have, at the start of the week, you can say, okay, but at the end of this week, I want to really, have this done by Tuesday and that done by Thursday. Just having, a clarity on exactly what your week looks like and what you want to really move forward in that week to move you towards the outcome which you kind of set initially. Excellent.
Well, so just feed some of this back, as there's a lot to take in for a lot of people, but I think this is very valuable. So the first thing to say is a couple of things for people who are coming off courses, which was my initial start and yours as well, by the sound of it, that first of all, you're not just relying on the course to give you structure, but you're taking whatever the course gives you and you're going to take it yourself and sort of, as it were, own it. You're going to make your own version of it in a very simple form, Google Doc, whatever. And then the second thing, which I really like, is that a lot of, which is a trap that I hadn't even really been very, very clear-minded on before, but you've just flagged out loud and clear, which is that most courses are there to help you get to launch one product, and then that's kind of it. They kind of end at that point. They might talk a little bit about outsourcing and stuff in the very beginnings of it, whereas you're from the off not thinking about launching one product and seeing how it goes, but having a plan. You're taking the IP and turning it into your company's own, IP, if you like, structures, and B, you're making a plan that's bigger than the training you receive right from the get-go. Is that a fair summary?
Exactly, yeah. So it's basically taking the things you've learned and distilling it into a really simple system of things you need to do to get product from, product research all the way through to launch. And then you've got that's yours, and you can improve it every time. But what that does is it highlights it gives you a nice visual overview of what the whole process looks like. And there's ways you can make it more visual, of course, with using like mind maps and stuff, because that really gets clarity. But ultimately, it's take what you've learned, put it into a high level overview, and then you can start blocking into your calendar. If you're using a project management software, which we're going to talk about shortly, I believe, you can get that locked in and have visibility on when you want to be moving them things forward. Great.
So now the next question that immediately comes up, because I know I was just talking to somebody, a consulting client I'm just going to start working with next week. Actually, we were just talking on the phone about an hour ago, and I was saying, as I do, okay, where do you want to go? Where are you now? And what's the big roadblock? So in other words, why aren't you going there yet? And for a lot of people, this guy included, it's about time management, self-management. So let's talk about the time management piece before we kind of gloss over that. We've talked about the big picture, where you want to go. You've done your training course, or you've gained a load of stuff from a podcast like this one, or the blog, by the way, amazingfba.com. If anyone hasn't been to the blog, there's tons of materials that will help you get started. But how do we actually get around to implementing that? You talked about time blocking. Do you have any other sort of processes or philosophies around personal time management before we even talk about outsourcing, but just for the lone person? And let's take a specific example. Let's say it's somebody who's got a full-time job and a family and has a couple of hours a day on weekdays and maybe one weekend day to work on it. How would they approach things in a systematic way?
Okay, so first things first, I know we touched on it just previously. It would be starting with the end in mind. And what I do before I do anything is I've got clarity on where I'm going for the quarter. So in a perfect example, let's say you start this on 1st of January, and this is the very first day of the year. You've got a kind of rough estimation of where you want to be in 3 months' time. The amount of products you've launched, or exactly what your goal is. And then it's about setting up, when you've got clarity on that, then it's about setting up a weekly rhythm. And mine's on a Sunday. For my personal planning is every Sunday, I have a process where it takes me like 2 or 3 hours, or sometimes if I'm rushed, an hour, where I look at the outcomes of the quarter in terms of the business and my personal outcomes too. And then I have a process of seeing, what part of, if I've got a plan for quarter, I can see what projects I need to work on in this coming week, which is going to move me towards the outcome for the quarter. And it's really that rhythm, which is, super essential to have. In my eyes, it changed everything for me, because before I started having a weekly rhythm where I'd plan, it was kind of a bit haphazard. It was, it was overwhelming, and I was drifting. But as soon as I put a line in the sand and said, this is the goal, this is where I'm heading, and then I built a weekly rhythm every Sunday where I have 2-3 hours, and I have no distractions, and I just plan my week, and that really changed a lot for me. Within that process, when you're planning your week ahead to move you towards the goals for the quarter, what you want to do is I use Google Calendar or Asana, which is a project management software, which we can talk about soon. But it's really about, from that week's plan, taking 3 to 5 things from that plan and blocking it into your calendar for the week. So when you've got time available and you've got, say, 3 hours or 2 hours, and life's crazy, life's really hectic, but when you get a block time of 2 or 3 hours, that you want to set a time aside in your calendar where you just work on that one of them outcomes that you wanted to move forward. And if all hell breaks loose in that week, then if you've been strict with your block time, and if you've actually committed and executed on it, then if all hell breaks loose, you've still moved your outcomes forward, which you wanted to get done. And you might not get everything done, and highly likely you won't, but you just focus on a select few to move forward, then that's going to really keep momentum and start to build traction.
Excellent. Well, that sounds like excellent advice, and thank you. I wanted to drill down on that because I think sometimes the devil is in the details, particularly when it comes to actually getting things done. That's the main block, I think, isn't it, for a lot of people? It sounds so simple, but yeah, the only thing I'd add to that, if you're really struggling, because I've worked with some people who are right in the early stages and just trying to build a business from scratch. If in doubt, just pick one thing to work on is what I would say. But obviously the more ambitious entrepreneur, you've got to have 3 or 4 key outcomes, I guess, for the week. Okay, now tell me a little bit about, let's expand on some of this other stuff. So you talked about goal setting. Are there particular techniques for setting the actual goals, the actual outcomes you want that you know of, and any particular processes or tools that you'd recommend for those?
Yes, absolutely. So I've spent a lot of time and money learning about how to best manage my time. I don't really particularly like using that term, but I've been through programs from Tony Robbins. I've been through programs from Todd Herman, and The One Thing. There's Getting Things Done, which is a classic by David Allen. But from my personal point of view, what I find really, really helpful is to basically get the outcome clear. And what I do is at the start, just take a 50,000 foot view so you can see how it begins. So at the start of the year, I would map out my, the year ahead. I want to create a plan for my life, a rough guiding plan. So I basically split it into two halves, which is personal and professional. So you have 2 areas of your life. And then within each one of them spheres, you have different categories. So for instance, for business, it could be, so for professional, it could be your brand. That could be a category in that, professional side of your plan for your life, where you can really break it down to say, okay, what's the outcomes? Always start with the outcome in mind. And once you've got an outcome clear, you want to then think about the purpose. Why are you doing it? And it's the classic, start with why. But I feel when you have a clear outcome and you have a clear purpose next to it, it really helps pull you towards taking the action which is going to be needed to move you towards that outcome. So Tony Robbins taught me, not personally, but he taught me through his program. It was called RPM. He taught me to always focus, what's your outcome, what's your why, and then what's the action plan to move you towards that. So that's at the highest level. At the 50,000 foot view, create a plan for your life, and then what does that look like? This is my target for my ultimate vision. What do I need to do in the next year to move me towards that? And what I've done is I've just basically reverse engineered it to a point where I've got a clear vision of what I want to, how I want to show up in the world in my business and in my personal life. And each week I connect on that vision, on that plan, which is a document, and I can see, okay, this is my ultimate vision of how I want to show up in the world, in my business and personal life, and you've got different categories in each. What do I need to do in this particular week to move me towards that outcome? So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that's clear.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is to hear somebody. This is why I really love to have sort of case studies of people, people on the show who, like yourself, have really actually done this for themselves in their Amazon business, or at least got a process that actually made money in real life for other people. And what's interesting is that a lot of people that I've met on self-development seminars or whatever have been to Tony Robbins seminars, and Tony Robbins is amazing. Don't get me wrong, I'm a massive fan, but RPM is something I've come across. But I know from myself as well that I've been quite capable of creating big visions and then not actually doing anything. So what the difference is that you're actually tying together some more visionary stuff, which we don't talk about so much in the Amazon community as a whole, but you're tying that back into very real stuff. So it's kind of good to hear Tony Robbins mentioned again, but actually in relation to somebody who's actually making real money, because a lot of the time the people who talked about Tony Robbins that I knew were people who trained as life coaches and then went out the other end going, now what? I have no skills to offer anyone. But that's, okay, interesting. So you are daring to think big picture and then to try and tie it back into ordinary life. So I'm tempted to try and drill down a little bit more into more concrete stuff for newbie sellers. So I'm just trying to think about conversations I've had with very new people who, even if they haven't even launched a product yet. I find one of the big blocks is not so much their planning, although there's a lack of that, but is actually moving forwards. And it's sometimes, you know what, as the coach, it's hard to know what the hell is blocking people. And equally, if I look at my own life, 6 months go by and you think, what the hell happened? I guess what it comes down to is paralysis by analysis and planning things that don't actually work out as they look to be on the paper. So on paper, I might say I'm going to launch 10 products this year. And it's very common for somebody to come to me and say, oh, by the end of this 12 months working with you, I want to have $500,000 in turnover and have launched 10 products. And I say, okay, so what's your budget? And they'll say $10,000. And I'll say, there's a mismatch here. Now, of course, when you're first starting out, you don't necessarily even know that. So what happens if you make a big plan and you discover there's a big mismatch between your plan and reality? What's the right approach to sort of adjust to that?
Yeah, okay. So from what I've heard you just say, you're talking about what it takes from, okay, you've created this plan, you've moved towards, you started executing on this, and you've realized halfway through that, okay, this is not going on the same trajectory like I was hoping, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, preferably you start with, and I think we've all fell victim to this, me personally, for sure. And it's something which goal setting, is something which some people don't like the term goal setting, but I think it's something you get better at over time and just through practice. But taking when you've got this ultimate vision of what your outcome which you want to hit, and you've just plucked it from the air, then it's always going to be challenging to really execute on that effectively if you're brand new and you've not got the resources that you might have if you've been doing it for a while. So in that instance, it's about really just kind of checking in, and this is why it's really important to reflect. And one of the biggest things which changed my life, my personal and professional life, was having that rhythm where every Sunday I just take stock. I reflect on the week. I look where I'm going for the outcome that I set, and I just say, what's working and what's really not working. Am I on track to be moving towards that outcome? If not, then there needs to be some readjustments in terms of what you're going to set. I believe not to get too caught up on, I want to be, and we've all set these crazy goals. Me personally, for sure, it happens often. Still to this day. Oh yes, we're born optimists. I think many people that are business owners and entrepreneurs, and you're thinking, I'm going to just make $1 million in the first few months, but in reality, a lot of the time it doesn't happen, which is fine. It's not, it's not about you failed. It's about, great. This is why I like the term outcome instead of goal, because you've got an outcome of what you're heading towards. You've got a vision of the future in terms of, you've got, if you think about it like a mountaintop, you've got your eye on the top of the mountain, exactly, a rough idea of what you want it to look like. And as long as you're moving towards the top of that peak, like stopping at different base camps along the way, that's the main thing, right? As long as you're moving forward, not to be too harsh on yourself, because that's something I found personally as well, and many other people that are high achievers and got high expectations of themselves. They kind of beat themselves up, and it's like, hang on a minute, I've made so much progress in the last. Think about where I was 3 months ago compared to where I am now. Think of all the things I've learned, and that's part of my weekly, my weekly process of planning is reflection to see, how far have we come. What does that look like? And what can we celebrate? What the wins we've had, instead of like, oh no, we're so far away from where we want to be. We're rubbish, or we need to get better. Instead, reflect, see where you can improve, and maybe adjust. Along the way. It's like mid-course correction, right? It's like when a plane takes off to its destination, it's never exactly on track. It's always adjusting all the way, because it's taken stock and it's reflecting to see, okay, this is our target. Where are we now? What do we need to do to change to move towards that ultimate vision?
Makes a lot of sense. And Yeah, I think a couple of things to reflect on that, because I like to reflect back what my guests are saying, because I think sometimes, well, I say so important, it needs to be said more than once so people really hear it. And I think the first thing is that the mountain climbing analogy, you might feel like it's going to take you 2 hours to storm up a mountain, and you're halfway up, you realize you're a lot less fit than you thought. It's slippier, it's wet, and it takes you 8 hours. As long as you're not going to starve to death or freeze or something, that's okay. So yeah, I think not adjusting your vision to reality is good. I think I've been very guilty, and it's funny, I feel bad now talking to you that I started off with a big vision and then I kind of gave up on it because I got a bit cynical about it. But actually, I think that that's another thing I really want to flag up right now, which is if you've come from a big course and they're all trying to sell their wares, and there's nothing terribly wrong with that, but I think you've got to be very, very, very realistic. If you've been pitched into a course and they've sold it to you on some optimistic basis of what you could achieve, I think before you try and implement, the second thing to do is call somebody like me up, or give you a bit of a reality check, because I'm all about being real, and there are a couple of other people like that around as well, and Brits probably better at that than Americans. I think that they're all about the razzmatazz, and go, right, how much money do I need to have to start with to develop this kind of private label business based on average numbers, right? You might knock it out of the park, it might go less well, and I think that would be a good start, because then you can set up a plan based on some form of reality, not based on hype. So that would be my other plea to anyone listening to this, is don't form a goal on your own based on the hype of somebody who's just sold you a course. Talk to somebody who's been there. It doesn't really matter who it is, really. I mean, I could do that, but it could be anyone who's actually been around the block. And then, yeah, like you said, but then don't give up on a realistic vision. So I really like what you said about that. So let's move into a couple more things for the new seller. So one question that I have is just without getting big on the outsourcing thing, which I think we'll talk about in the second episode of our sessions with you. What are the first outsourcing things you're going to need to do? What can you not do yourself, or you're going to have to outsource? Because I know a lot of new sellers are very reluctant to outsource anything because of money, understandably. And what's the simplest and best approach to handling that situation?
Okay, great. So at the highest level, if you think about if you're brand new, you're stepping into this Amazon world, there's going to be a bunch of processes and areas which happen often, and they're the high frequency things, which are kind of, you want to target the high frequency and low value activities in your business, which can be easily outsourced. So a simple way on how to look at it is really thinking about, okay, let's say you've launched a product and you're currently earning say $500 a month in profit. That's your current income from this business, and you've taken stock and you've looked at actually where you spend your time, and you're spending maybe 20 hours a week spending it on customer service, which is a task you can kind of outsource for relatively cheap. If you go over to the Philippines, you can get it $5-7 an hour, and you can get that done well at that rate, providing you've given the great delegation in terms of how you exactly want it done, and we can get into that very shortly. But in terms of getting rid of the high frequency and low value stuff, it's going to be things like customer service, things which happen often in terms of the for instance, commenting on reviews, or another thing which would be kind of, you move into outsourcing it, would be your Amazon PPC, because that's once you've set that up, then that's a repetitive task each week to kind of optimize that. And once you're competent in how to do that, and then that'd be a place to go to. It's really about highlighting all of the areas which you spend a lot of your time doing, which one, you don't really like to do, which is also important, and also the low value and low and high frequency tasks. So there's a process which I take my clients through, and it's really to take stock of where they're spending their time. So I get them to basically create a download of all the areas which they've been spending time on, which it's basically, they download all the areas over the last week, the few days, the weeks, and all the process they've been spending time on. And then it's about highlighting and basically you rank them to see which ones occur the most, which ones don't you like to do the most as well. It's important to get clear on the areas of the business which you particularly hate working on. They drain your energy instead of give you energy. So it's about highlighting the overall processes which you want to get rid of first, and it's usually low value, high frequency stuff, and things that just annoy you and you're not very good at, or you just really don't want to do. And I call that process is called moving into your genius, downloading everything that you do, highlighting the things which you want to get rid of, and then working on the things which you do love to work on, which is the goal, because that's where you add the most value to the business. That's where you work where time disappears. That's where you have the most fun and where you do your best work. And ultimately, that's what's going to move the business forward fastest. But at the highest level, it's about getting clear on the high frequency and low value tasks and then getting rid of them.
Yeah, makes a hell of a lot of sense. Have you got any particular tools that you would use to sort of automatically track your use of time over a week, say on your PC or Mac or whatever, your main devices?
So in terms of tracking, one of the things I take my clients through as well is I have them do a daily time tracker, which basically it all starts with taking stock and reflecting to see exactly what's going on, because it's drawn a line in the sand of awareness. So we all we go about our days and we're just busy work, but we don't have clarity on actually where we spend our time. And this was revolutionary for me, because I done this exercise, and before I'd done it, I thought I was being super productive and I was doing super well, and I started just record every single thing that I'd done, and I'd done it for 2 weeks. Most people don't want to do it for that long, which is fine. 5 to 7 days is cool, but ultimately what I did is I made a record of the exact type of task that I was doing, and it could be from making lunch to going to the gym, or everything in my day as often as I could. I had the sheet open and just and log basically what it was that I was doing. And at the end of the day, I looked and reflected on exactly what I'd done, and I was being delusional, to be quite frank, of how productive I was being. It was quite scary. I was like, oh my word, I've been thinking I've been doing all this work, and it was just busy, low value, highly repetitive stuff, which is not moving the business forward. So it's really about getting clarity, drawing that line in the sand. And there's kind of four categories which I like to categorize the areas of your work. And the first one is areas of your life where you're working on, which is it's the first one is things that you're incompetent at. So these are areas which you really don't want to work on. They drain your energy. You shouldn't be working on them, and they just kind of annoy you. They irritate you when you do them. That's the first level. The second level is competence. So this is an area which you can do the task. It's okay. You don't enjoy it, and really it's not doing much for the business. The third area is called is it like excellent? You're great at it. You can do it, but again, it's not something that you're naturally gifted at, that you've learned through skill. And the fourth area is your genius, working in your genius. So the things that you really love to do, the things which, where time disappears and you get super inspired, and that's when you're at your happiest and you're doing your best work. So they're the four kind of categories that I label all of these tasks at. And when you do that, you can clearly see the areas of the business that you're doing, which are low value. And you can see the ones which you should be working on more. It just gives you clarity and visibility on okay, these areas are the ones I need to start getting rid of, because without that clarity and without that actually written down, it seems like a seething mass in your head of all these these endless to-dos. But when you get it down, you can see where you're spending your time, which you probably shouldn't be doing, and then you can get a plan together to move your way.
Brilliant. So thank you very much for that, Aaron. I think that gives us a nice sort of point at which to leave things for the sort of very new or low value sellers, or I don't want to say low value, I mean low income at the moment, early days sellers. But one of the other things I would say is that is not always about delegating stuff that is cheap and nasty, low value stuff. For example, photography is very, very important for an Amazon seller, right? But unless you're taking shots with your iPhone, then most of us are going to delegate that to a professional photographer who may earn more per hour than we do at the moment, but I still think that that's a valid use of delegation. And the other thing I'd say is that all of us are going to delegate in the private label model. I mean, none of us are going to make like 500 plastic widgets in our living room. Or are we going to actually, physically deliver products to California from London, either, for that matter? So we're going to be outsourcing whether we like it or not. So I think it's good to get comfortable with the idea right from the start, right? And I love the clarity that you're bringing to the approach, less doing, more reflecting. I think I'm certainly totally guilty of that. So I think it's a very, very helpful message. So thank you for all those incredible tips for people starting out.
My pleasure.
Hi, this is Michael Veazey from Amazing FBA. I've got a quick one for you. If you're super stoked and awesomely excited to sell on Amazon, that's great. But if you're American, I'm afraid you need to stop listening, because this one is for the Brits only. I'm not being biased, but this is because I'm talking about something which is based in London. So you're going to need to be in Britain or near Britain to take advantage of it. The basic problem we have as internet entrepreneurs is we are lonely and isolated, because we're tapping, sadly, at our tablets on our own. We're cooped up with our computers and we're going insane with the internet. We need to connect to other people. It's only a human thing, right? And relationships are the basis of all good business. So if you are in that situation, keep listening, because we have a solution called the Amazing FBA London Mastermind. But I'm going to specifically talk to you if you're in that situation, but you are yet to launch on Amazon. So you want to launch on Amazon, you haven't got there yet. This is exactly for you. It's called the Zero to Hero Pre-Launch Mastermind. And our aim is very simple: to get you from research or importing, or even if you've got products on the way to Amazon, to launch with your first product live on Amazon. That's our goal. That's our focus. How do we achieve that? Very simple. We have a face-to-face meeting of up to 15 people, no more than that. So it's very, very focused. And you get 30 minutes minimum to talk about your business and focus on the single issue that's blocking you that month to move you forward. The other way we keep you accountable is that we have a video accountability call once a month as well, which it goes in between the physical meetups, so that we keep that momentum going, because momentum's everything, guys. As you know, on your own, you just lose the dream and you fall into slowness, and then the business just dies from neglect. So we do the opposite. We keep it moving, we keep each other motivated, we inspire, and we tell the truth about what doesn't work so other people can learn from it. We also have a couple of other things. I give an exclusive newsletter available only to members of the mastermind, where I share the latest tips, techniques and tricks and bigger strategies that I'm trying on my Amazon businesses, and tell you what works and frankly what doesn't work as well, so you can learn from my mistakes. And of course, there's an exclusive Facebook group to share all this good stuff with each other in between the meetings and the accountability calls. So there's a ton on offer here. It's obviously going to be very limited because it's maximum 15 people anyway, but for the first 5 people who come on board, there will be a special deal and a very special price for life. But that's obviously only for the first 5 people who come on board. So if you want to check it out, just go to amazingfba.com/London Mastermind, and you can find out there more about it. You can apply there as well if you want to. And if you move fast, you might even be one of the lucky first 5 people to take advantage of it as well. So that's amazingfba.com/London Mastermind. I'm going to put this video out to everyone on my podcast and everyone in the Facebook group, of which we've got nearly 900 members now, and on the YouTube channel. So I imagine that this will fill quite quickly. So if you're serious about it, get yourself over to amazingfba.com/London Mastermind, and you can find. Thanks for listening.